at jeg og
Åh gud, det
Nisse
her
i
er
dag skal
akavet.
snakke omkring penge.
Jeg holder
Det er
penge
sådan,
som
vi
en
altid
lille
gør. Vi har
beta-knagerække.
begge to
Jeg må
lavet
hellere
YouTube-videoer
smile og lade
rigtig
som om
mange
jeg
år.
ikke har
Vi
lyst
har
til
begge
at
to
skyde
tjent
mig selv.
dem her på YouTube i et godt år.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, velkommen til. I dag skal vi reagere på to videoer. Vi skal reagere på to CNBC-videoer. Den ene, det er, om markedet overreagerede lidt for meget i fredags på Jerome Powell, der kom ud og sagde, at vi vil bekæmpe inflation by any means necessary. For hver en pris skal vi bring it low, 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 low. Citat Flowrider. Det er den ene, vi skal se. Alright, det er den her. Den anden, vi skal se, det er, at markedet kan faktisk stadigvæk rally ind i slutningen af året. Det er SoFi's helt egen Liz Young. Hvis I kender mig, så er jeg jo ret glad for SoFi. Og Liz Young, hun er sådan en talsperson fra det firma, og det er altid sjovt at høre, hvad hun synes om det hele. Men lad os lige prøve at se først her. Overreagerede markedet i fredags, da Nasdaq faldt næsten 4%, S&P 3%.
Eva, good morning. Give us your assessment of Friday. We mentioned that the stock market reacted in a much more dramatic way to what Jay Powell said than the bond market did, than the foreign exchange market did. Did it change the picture for you in terms of how stocks are positioned?
Så har han skulle givet hende en god landingsbane at tage fart fra her. Lad os se, hvad hun siger.
Not really. We think it was an overreaction. To us, the Fed revealed nothing new. They've been consistent with their messaging. I know many people thought they have been more hawkish.
Jeg er enig i, at de har været meget konsistent i deres holdning, at de vil bekæmpe inflation for hver en pris, men jeg er ikke enig i, at vi ikke hørte noget nyt, fordi tonen, som han slog an i fredags, var noget mere. Der kommer absolut ikke til at være nogen som helst pivot, nogen drejning. Vi kommer til at hæve de her renter for evigt. Og sådan synes jeg absolut ikke, det lød sidst, han snakkede. Jay Powell! Der lød det altså som om, at vi vil reagere på data, og faktisk snart kunne det godt være, at vi tænker vores rate hikes lidt. Jeg synes, han lød noget mere aggressiv den her gang. Og efter han talte sidste gang, der var der også adskillige andre Fed-medlemmer ud og sige, at de er overrasket over markedet rallyet, og de kan forstå markedet rallyet, og markedet burde ikke rally, og de har gjort alt muligt for at slå det her rally ihjel.
But we did not get into this mess overnight, so we should not expect to get out of it overnight either. It's going to take 1 to 2 years to see inflation reach the goal of 2%.
God pointe.
That being said, we think we might see a reversal this week. The put volume was very low on Thursday. It then spiked. It doubled on Friday. And if you
så put volume fordoblede sig i fredags efter mødet, sindssygt nok. Det er altså puts, altså folk, der better imod markedet.
Look at the advanced decline volume. The decline volume was much far ahead than the advanced volume, and last time that happened was on June 13 and June 16, which was then followed by a strong bull market. So we might see the same happen this time.
Så hun er en kæmpe bull hende her.
As well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that it was pretty aggressive selling, and maybe on a short-term basis, a little bit washed out. Although I guess longer term, if in fact you say it's 1 to 2 years perhaps to get inflation under control, Powell's saying that we're going to have to deal with growth struggling under that scenario and rates staying higher for longer. Don't you think earnings are going to have to perhaps soften up a little bit? We still have aggressive growth expectations in the consensus for 2023.
Og earnings season i efteråret det kommer til at være spændende. Lad mig sige en ting, som jeg tror kan make or break markedet. Jeg er ikke nogen ekspert, der er ikke noget finansiel rådgivning her omkring. Apple. Et ord, jeg behøver ikke sige mere Apple. Hvis Apple begynder at falde fra hinanden, ikke også? Og de har allerede været ude og så lave nærmest ingen vækst i deres sidste earnings. Hvis de kommer ud den her gang med lige så lave forventninger eller mindre, Apple er en kæmpe del af Nasdaq, kæmpe del af S&P, den kommer til at trække hele pisset ned.
Yes, definitely. But that being said, profits are still at record lows. We might see some cooling, but inflation affects each company differently. We are looking at margins. To us, margins is very important. Of course, we see retail, for example, struggling.
Olie og gas op igen.
Bed Bath & Beyond, Target, Wayfair, they're struggling with their SG&A, inventory is rising. But at the same time, you have other companies also in the technology area that are able to decrease their SG&A costs and expand their margins even with inflation.
Ava, question.
Enig i, at der er nogle firmaer, som kan expand their margins, som hun siger, og blive mere profitable under det her miljø. Men jeg vil da umiddelbart mene, at størstedelen kommer til at gøre det modsat. at få noget pain i det her miljø, ikke? Og plus, I don't know.
For you, interest rates are going higher. Usually that's not great for long duration assets.
Nope.
You like technology, you like growth.
Yep.
Kind of try to explain that to us a little bit and go through your rationale.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely. So the narrative is, since February 2021, growth has significantly underperformed the market. That
Siden februar. Ej, det er ikke nærmest siden november.
was because of the expectation that inflation will go higher. Now we have the reverse. Now inflation has peaked, and hopefully will.
Du ved da ikke, om den har peaked. Det er da bare noget, hun hiver ud af røvhullet. Hun ved da ikke, om inflation har peaked. Det kan være, at vi får en higher headline reading næste gang. Det kan være, det er mere sticky, end vi regner med.
Start seeing some cooling and inflation will start coming down. So we might see the reverse of what happened last year and earlier this year, with growth outperforming the markets and value underperforming.
Mm-hmm. Jeg tror dog stadig, at selvom growth outperformer value, hvilket selvfølgelig er dejligt, så tror jeg bare stadigvæk, hvis Apple eksempelvis, kæmpe value company, får det skidt, jamen så trækker det også growth med ned.
Yeah, so it's the sort of earnings predictability of growth that is probably perhaps going to come more into the fore. Now, do you think that we need to at least revisit the area of the June lows to sort of test it and see if it was the real thing?
Det håber jeg. Jeg håber, vi skal derned igen, så der er buying opportunities.
No, I think we won't revisit the June lows, hopefully. I think the markets will be choppy for the rest of the year, but we might have a year-end rally. I think we need to be patient. We'll probably, I think the Fed will stay the course.
Så hun tror, det bliver choppy, men vi har et year-end rally.
With a 75 basis points rate hike in September, because there are two key things that they're monitoring: 3 consecutive months of lower inflation, and also the rate of change is very important. So if the rate of the decrease of inflation is accelerating, that's going to be a very good signal.
Ja, hvis raten, som inflation falder med, den accelererer, det vil sige, at det falder mere og mere og mere og mere. Ja, det er klart, så skyder markederne op som en raket, men hvad nu hvis, at det forbliver det samme? Eller Gud forbyde stiger? Det er der altså ikke nogen garanti for, at det ikke gør.
Interesting how on Friday itself.
Det her det er så Liz Young fra SoFi. Hun tror dog også på et year-end rally.
Pretty linear response from stocks. You know, Jay Powell spoke during the session. Let's remember, they opened quietly and then went down from there. However, bond market seemed like it already got to that point, right? Just about. Yields had repriced over the prior 2 weeks. The dollar, things like that. So does that tell you that, you know, stocks just had to catch down to what everybody else already had figured out? Or is there something from this point on that says a renewed pressure coming on stocks from the Fed?
Lige nu der optager jeg den her video. I er helt sikkert klogere end jeg er, fordi I kommer til at se den på et senere tidspunkt. Men pre-market er også blodigt rødt her mandag. Et kvarter inden markedet åbner. Og det var blodrødt i fredags. Og det kan godt blive en trend med, det fortsætter ned og ned og ned. But who knows? Det kan også være, når du ser den her video, så er vi allerede ved rally. Who knows?
Well, I think a couple things. So first of all, traditionally we look at the bond market as a signal before we look at the stock market as a signal. So the bond market, usually we believe, knows things first. I think it was right in this sense.
Så hun snakker om, at obligationsmarkedet viser os tegn før aktiemarkedet.
What stocks had priced in up until, let's call it August 16th, was this big possibility for a soft landing. I think the belief that we could manufacture one. And then what we had to reprice in was still this 50% possibility for a recession. So we re-rate again back down. Friday, as you mentioned, pretty indiscriminate selling. Probably going to have a little bit more selling today. And I don't think that that's a huge surprise given where multiples are. So if you look at where we are on a forward PE, about 17.3 times, which is right around the 10-year average. But
ja, stadigvæk dyrt. Altså hvis vi skal have et ordentligt tilbageryk, så skal vi ned under gennemsnitlige PE-værdier, tror jeg. Med et forsigtigt bud. Ingen finansiel rådgivning her.
With inflation at this level, maybe deserves to be a little lower until we get inflation under control.
It would seem the stock market, in addition perhaps to pricing in that hopeful idea that there would be something explicit about a Fed pivot, deceleration, we're going to downshift to 25 basis point hikes and then we'll be done in a few months, whatever the message might have been. The market's also looking at the path of the inflation numbers themselves, right? So you've had, you know, this 1 month down in CPI. Friday morning, you had the core PCE inflation measure that came in below expectations. So the market's not just trying to say, oh, we were trading based on what Powell was going to say. We were trading based on how they may respond in a few months if inflation cooperates. I mean,
Og det er det smukke ved aktiemarkedet. Det kigger altid 6 måneder frem eller sådan noget, og det var derfor det der kæmpe rally kom. Det var fordi aktiemarkedet begyndte at forudsige, at om et halvt års tid, så kommer Fed i hvert fald til at pivot. De har allerede sænket deres rate hikes, og så formentlig er det kun 0,25, og så er vi snart ud af det, og alt er godt. Men i fredags, der sagde Jay Powell noget af det modsatte, og det var, at de ville fortsætte aggressivt, indtil det var væk, og det kan komme til at tage længere tid end forventet, og der kommer til at være, quote, some pain. Og han var altså noget mere blunt i hans remarks.
I mean, that would be the bull case for why the lows would hold.
Yeah, well, so you want the market to trade on the data rather than on Powell's words.
Yes.
And I think
Og det må være så træls for folk, der ved noget om økonomi. Det gør jeg ved ikke specielt meget, men folk, der rent faktisk fatter noget om makro og økonomi og aktier og markedet og sådan noget, der prøver at sidde og regne det her ud. Og det kan være så pisse lige meget at the end of the day, fordi det er hvad Powell han siger. Altså, når han siger noget dovish, noget godt, så rallyer markedet. Når han så kommer ud og er sur igen, jamen, så falder markedet. Det er en joke. Det er ikke det frie marked. Altså, det er Powells marked.
I think that's what he tried to send the message of on Friday was, look, you're not listening to me, so let me say it again very clearly, very succinctly, and then let's all watch the data. So if you're a bull in this environment, and I am optimistic that we can still have a rally through the end of the year, that doesn't necessarily mean that we'll get back up to the highs. It doesn't mean that we're going to end the year positive. But the bull case would say, as inflation comes down and as we get maybe to the second month of a cooling in inflation and then the third month, that the market will care more about that than the idea that the Fed is going to keep hiking rates. But
og det er det store spørgsmål. Hvad kommer den næste inflationsrating til at være? Jeg tror, nu fik vi vi fik 8,5 sidste gang. Hvis for eksempel vi får en 8'er lige ude, en 7,8, en whatever, så tror jeg også bullcasen den er lagt. Men hvis vi får en 8,7 eller et eller andet, altså igen, vi fik et enormt drops i vores sidste rating, fordi at olie simpelthen bare var blevet tæsket så meget tilbage fra 120 til 87 eller sådan noget. Men nu er olie stabiliseret sig lidt og ligger vist i 90'erne lige nu. Og mange andre sektorer er faktisk steget siden da. Så jeg er ikke sådan overdrevet bullish.
the reality is we have to get to a restrictive policy, and restrictive means that the Fed funds rate is higher than neutral. So if we're at neutral now, we have to keep going.
Yep.
That shouldn't have been a surprise.
Right.
Nemlig, you gotta keep going indtil inflationen den kommer ned. Jeg håber I vil like den her video. Jeg håber I har nydt den. Vi ses i den næste. Husk at følge kanalen.